that's a perfect segue to get into this. It's great to meet you. I really want to peel back the layers of your life and your work and in your latest book. But before that, when we look at the calendar, we're on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic. And I'm curious, if we go back to when it began, how did you get through that time period and how did it change you?
Well, professionally, I'm a licensed counselor, and that was a very unique time, of course, in history. But professionally, I still worked, and we kind of had a little mental health crisis not long after. I think it probably kicked in about April. I think started really affecting people being isolated, but it didn't affect me a whole lot because I still worked, and I was providing some services on site of companies that were doing essential services because they felt like it would be good to have a counselor just for people that may have been really struggling. So I did that, and I still met with clients one-on-one who felt comfortable doing that. The funny thing was about a year before that, I had started training for virtual therapy, which was in Arkansas. You have to have a special, or you used to have a specialized license in training and forms and the whole ethics training and all that to be able to perform services online. And so I felt like, because I was having a hard time kind of promoting those services and having people do that. But COVID really changed that. Now online is like so second nature to everybody. But yeah, so I had forms and everything. So I was like all prepared. Like as
Yeah.
soon as it clicked, I was like, oh, we could just roll over to online. So those that didn't feel comfortable, did it online. And I think probably especially those first few weeks or maybe even a month or so, a lot of people did online. So,
Yeah.
and then personally, how it, affected me, I have a very strong faith. And so a lot of what we were hearing online was very fear-based. And as a therapist, I work very hard in helping people not make decisions based on emotions. And so that was a really hard thing just to kind of like, well, we're supposed to be afraid of this, but like we shouldn't base decisions on that either. So personally, it was a really hard time just to work through that of like being brave and mentally healthy, but also being cautious and somewhat afraid. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a weird thing personally
Yeah.
and professionally.
It certainly was. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do as a therapist and an author. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Well, normally I was a school-based therapist for a bit, so they did often wonder if their parents brought them in, like who was I and what was I doing there? And I would just say, I help when people have problems and they can't work it through themselves, I help them work through that. So, and then sometimes if they may had a tough past or something traumatic happened, I might say sometimes things happen in the past that's hard to work through in the present, and I help kids or whoever work through those things. So yeah, I kept it very simple, just helping, and that was a little less intimidating for them, especially if they had
Yeah.
to come to me. um yeah, they don't want to have to tell their friends they're going to see a counselor.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
was just a friend that was
Absolutely.
helping.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Actually, my dream was to be a taxi driver.
Wow, that's cool.
Because this is what I thought. I grew up in a really small town. We didn't have taxis. And so the only real taxiing I saw was on TV. And I thought that people just get in your car and you would drive them anywhere in the world. So, and now I recognize like, oh, that was my desire to travel because I love traveling.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I was just like wanting to take people all these different places. And yeah, now that I know, you can't really do that.
Right, but it's a great dream. I mean,
Yeah.
that's another wonderful idea for a kid's book. to be that taxi driver that could
Ooh.
go, maybe you can go at the speed of light or close to, and you could go anywhere. You could go to New York and LA. You got some magic
Mhm.
way, but you have to be in the cab,
Yeah.
and it
Oh,
plays.
that's good, Joe.
And
Maybe
if
you should write that.
that, well, there you go. And when you arrive at your destination, the theme song for Taxi plays inside the taxi. Da da da.
That's well, if I had a superhero talent or whatever they're called, that's always one of my was being able to transport myself to wherever I wanted to be in a second. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
that would go very good together.
yeah. Absolutely, it would. So let me ask you a question. You love traveling. What was one of the most unexpected places that you went to that was just really either magical or beautiful?
Oh, that's an excellent question. We we just came back from Hawaii, like literally a couple weeks ago, and that was unexpected. And I only expected, now maybe I should be more educated in what Hawaii looks like, but I was imagining just beaches and palm trees.
Yeah,
And we went to several islands and they were all very different. They all have very different terrain, like rainforest, volcano, black beaches, white beaches, like mountains. I mean, it was beautiful,
yeah,
but also very unexpected for me. But I served in the military, and I think that was, the taxi driver dream coming to life is that I did get to visit a lot of countries and stuff. And, um, but one of the places that was probably abruptly was like, wow, this is different, was, Somalia.
yeah,
And just being in that area, that was, um we got to have a day of rest and relaxation, and there was actually a beach. And yeah, it's kind of contrary to being, so that would
yeah,
probably be a place too that was like, it's we over here we're in the city, and then there is also this beautiful area, but people struggling, and it's also beautiful. It's kind of a
yeah,
contradiction of sorts.
yeah. Makes sense for sure. So let me ask you this: who's been a consistent hero or an inspiration in your life?
Well, that I'm not really good at narrowing that down. I mean, because I'm a person of faith, the Bible's been consistently that inspiration for me to always strive to be more like how I believe God calls me to be. But people that I admire or inspire me are probably people that have been a little bit rebellious in their time, and or maybe stood up for something they believed in when it was really hard, or just consistently stood by their faith when it was really hard. People that pop out like C.S. Lewis, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington. Just learning sometimes those backstories are very intriguing to me. I'm like, I want to be a changer like
Yeah.
that.
So speaking of those kinds of people, if you could meet one person, whether historical or current, that you find inspirational, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Um, that's again, I'm not like a starstruck necessarily person, but I think one person that intrigues me is Franklin Graham. I know that his dad's the big Billy Graham, and it
Yeah,
would be interesting just to hear his story personally. And the fact that if I could hang with him for a day, because he does so many awesome things, like um, Samaritan's Purse is like, they were there in New York with a medical tent with when COVID patients were so numerous, the hospitals couldn't even hold them. And then when there's a hurricane, they're down there providing food and helping rebuild. And then they run Operation Christmas Child. Like, I would love to just go. I mean, I love to serve anyway, but to be there and kind of see and just hang a day with
yeah,
all the different awesome things that they do throughout the world would be great.
absolutely. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this. What is your motivation every day to get up and to not only help people, but you're also writing books? and you have to evolve as your own self. How do you do all of that? And what's the inspiration behind all that?
I I would probably again put that um back to my faith and just, feeling like I've got a purpose here on earth and I want to fulfill it the best that I can. Not perfectly, but just the best that I can and however that looks. Um I mean, and also it like literally gets me out of bed. So like a big to-do list all the time because managing like a full-time job and I have my own practice and then we have a small farm and then, writing and marketing comes along with once the book is done. Like it's a lot of stuff. So just the to-do list is
Yeah,
like, you gotta get out to do that stuff, but ultimately, I think that's what gets us all out of bed is purpose,
yeah.
like, to have like, we believe we're here and we wanna make a difference, and I think that, um, especially in the mental health field, when people lose that, they can become very depressed if they don't feel like that they have that or no real hope for anything, that can be very detrimental.
So, what's been one of your favorite or best client success stories?
Oh, Joe, goodness.
Hmm.
I don't ever attribute success stories to me because I think good mental health is like equipping people or helping them make good choices for themselves. Like when people stop having to come to therapy or I call it sometimes graduating from therapy, like that's when I know that it's been successful. Like they're accomplishing the goals that they came in. So if it's they need better coping skills or how to manage their anxiety or manage the depression or have worked through a trauma, that is all success, but I didn't really do anything, like, I'm just walking alongside with them, giving them things that's most of the time people already know. I'm just saying it out loud to them and helping them or maybe giving them an insight, but they're the ones that do the work, like, I can't force anybody to make changes or to do these things, but they have to want that, and they have to actually do the hard work, so I don't know. I find joy though when people feel like they've accomplished what they've come to therapy to accomplish, but I wouldn't attribute it to my success or just them doing the good things.
Okay. So, as
Yeah.
an author, what was the first book that you read when you were younger? One of your favorite books growing up that really inspired you?
Um, well, some of my favorite books, I'm trying to think, did I have a favorite? I read so much. My mom always jokes that we went to the library and there they had a max number of books you could check out. And I think it was like 14. And so I was able to check out 14 and then I would use her or my brother's max also. And so I'd bring home all these books every week and then just read them. Like, I don't know how I had the time as a child. I guess I didn't have a lot of activities, but some of my favorites were like Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Like I love mysteries. And then Little House on the Prairie series. I love those. And then a lot of the popular like Judy Blume and some of the other um authors that were good for young kids, but I don't remember really like picture books per se or things like that when I was young. I just remember reading a lot of the novels. Now, I wrote a couple books myself, and that's probably, I think, when people read a lot, they do kind of get inspired to write their own stuff. I wrote a couple children's stories.
Yeah.
Those were very primitive and not that great. I did bring out one of them was called The Stranger and I did bring it out at, Christmas and because we were all talking about my new children's book that was gonna come out, and, so I read The Stranger to them. Everybody thought it was hilarious.
So,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. You have to help people, you have to guide them through difficult situations. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
I don't, recently, we had a couple years ago, we had a birthday party for my dad who's turning 80. And I was like, okay, like give us some good wisdom of, your life, of like things you've learned. And he had shared, it's really not how you begin, but how you end. And end well. And so even though that isn't the advice that like inspired me from a young child, because I'm not really sure like one thing's, because I just like a lot of stuff, and a lot of things have inspired me, but that has really helped encourage me. Just my dad's that it's important how we end. So even though we might have struggles as we go through life or whatever, um it matters what we do the next moment or the next morning, and not so much like where we've fallen or failed or whatever
Yeah. Yeah.
previously. So I'm going with end well.
Yeah. There you go. So
Yeah.
of all of the things that you've done in your life so far, all of the things that you've accomplished and become, what are you the proudest of?
um I'm probably the proudest, and again, that it's always hard to, because with faith, like I don't feel like I've done anything on my own per se. I always feel like I've had God helping me through situations. But when I was in the military, I became a single parent, and persevering through that time was really difficult, especially as a Christian. Not married and having a child is, um, not the right way to go. So that was a really hard, just spiritually thing to walk through, but also financially, it was hard to walk through it. And I, I had got a couple degrees while I was a single parent, and my license as a counselor as a single parent also. So just being able to, I mean, it kind of even encourages me as I talk about it, like I was able to do a lot. And I think sometimes we underestimate what we can actually accomplish if we put our mind to it and we have a desire in our heart to do it. So I think, wow, how did I do all that? But um well, with God helping me, but also just determining to do it. Like that makes me proud. I think that you don't let things in life, you don't let that be a reason you can't do something, but you can do things. Just put your mind to it and figure out a way to do it. And it's developed a great trait of just perseverance, of being able to push through the hard things and not being a victim, or not allowing something to be a reason why you can't do something.
So let's say you have a dream tonight, you run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point. What advice would you give your younger self?
Well, as an 18-year-old, I was very lost. I just had no self-esteem. I don't, most people can probably relate when you go through school and you're teased or bullied or whatever, like you kind of have a low self-esteem. And so I would probably tell myself, that's a very good question too, by the way. I mean, we should think about that more often, because then we can tell our present day self something of the same sort. Um, but I would probably tell her that it really, at the end of the day, does not matter what anybody thinks. It's who you choose to be and who you want to be, that matters. And because I did end up giving myself that advice at one point in my life of like, stop worrying about like what they think. That's not they don't determine who you are. You determine who you are. And probably bigger than that, God determines who you are when you were created. So that's what I would probably tell myself. And I wish I could have used that advice probably when I was about 9.
Yeah.
When you start really trying to think of, when other people start saying things or whatever, like, so yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, your readers, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I am exactly who as I just said, like who I determine myself to be. And I hope that I'm a person of compassion, of kindness, of encouragement, um, and a value ultimately. A person that's been designed with purpose and with traits. Well, I hope I'm funny too. I mean, not everybody laughs at my jokes, but I think I'm
Yeah,
hilarious. My husband always says, "No one's laughing but you." I'm like, "But I'm laughing
that's
because
right.
I'm funny."
That's right.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to get the new children's book, if anyone wants to hire, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, anything about your world, what's the good business?
My author website is written by Healey, Healey, .com. And but you can find my books on Amazon and really any online bookstore. But there they can connect with me. I'm on Facebook too and Instagram, although I'm not a great Instagrammer, but all by the same name, written by Healey. And yeah, I like interacting with people and sometimes when you're a counselor, like a lot of people love to reach out and ask you counseling questions. And I actually love it
Oh, cool.
when people do that. But my books you can order if you want an autograph copy. I mean, you could reach out to me and I can send that out. But if you just want one on Amazon, so I've got, well, I won't share. You can just reach out that way.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It's all
Okay.
good. It was so great to meet you. Thank you so much for opening up for your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me come on, and it was a joy meeting you too.
Great to meet you. Have a great Easter.